The city was alive that night, glowing lights, the hum of cars, and the chatter of people escaping their long workdays. Inside one of the city's finest restaurants, everything was elegant, golden chandeliers, a live piano playing gentle jazz, and the faint aroma of roasted garlic drifting through the air. Among the well-dressed guests and flashing jewelry, one woman entered quietly wearing a plain cream blazer, her hair tied neatly back, and no sign of extravagance. Few recognized her immediately, but the staff knew. It was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the most powerful and compassionate billionaires in the world. A woman known for her success in business, politics, and philanthropy, yet still humble enough to sit down for dinner without a crowd around her. She didn't come with bodyguards or assistants. No flashing cameras, just peace. She'd spent the whole day visiting one of her charities, and tonight she wanted nothing more than a warm meal and a quiet moment to think. As she took a seat near the window, the waiter approached a young man, probably in his early 20s. His name tag read Ethan. He looked slightly nervous but tried his best to smile. His uniform was clean, though a little faded, and there was something tired about his eyes. Ethan politely, "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to Le Jardin. Can I get you something to drink?" Alexandria smiling softly. "Just water for now, please." He nodded, quickly scribbling on his notepad. "Ethan, of course, ma'am. I'll be right back." As he walked away, Alexandria looked out the window, the city lights reflecting on the glass like scattered diamonds. People outside hurried along the sidewalks, chasing buses, checking phones, living their own little stories. She'd seen all sides of life from poverty to power, and she knew how fragile success could be. Maybe that's why she loved ordinary moments like this, because they reminded her of where she came from. Moments later, Ethan returned with her water. "Ethan, would you like to see the dinner menu, ma'am?" Alexandria. "Yes, thank you. I think I'll have something simple tonight. Maybe grilled salmon with vegetables?" Ethan relieved smile. "Excellent choice." He collected the menu and disappeared again. Alexandria noticed how politely he spoke, how careful he was with every gesture, as if afraid of making a mistake. She'd met thousands of people, but something about this waiter seemed different. His movements were precise, but his mind, distracted. She caught a glimpse of him through the glass divider as he stood by the kitchen counter, quietly rubbing his eyes. It wasn't just exhaustion. It looked like pain, the kind that hides behind a forced smile. Alexandria knew that look. She had seen it in her own reflection once, years ago, when she struggled to survive and people doubted her dreams. When Ethan returned with the food, he placed the plate gently in front of her. Ethan softly, "Your dinner, ma'am. I hope it's to your liking." Alexandria warmly, "It looks perfect, thank you." He nodded again but didn't leave right away. For a second, it looked like he wanted to say something, but then he hesitated, forced a small smile, and stepped back. As she ate, Alexandria couldn't help glancing at him from time to time. He served other tables quietly, avoiding eye contact, always polite, always distant. Something inside her wanted to ask, "What's wrong?" But she didn't want to intrude. After all, she was just another customer. Still, her instinct told her there was more to this boy than his uniform revealed. After a while, the restaurant began to empty. Soft jazz continued to play as the waiters cleared tables and dimmed the lights. Alexandria finished her meal and looked content, calm, at peace. When Ethan approached again to ask if she wanted dessert, she smiled. "Alexandria, no, thank you. The dinner was lovely." Ethan nodding, "I'm glad you enjoyed it, ma'am." He hesitated again, that same pause, like words caught in his throat. But before she could ask, he turned toward the counter. It was subtle, but Alexandria noticed something unusual. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the check folder. He tucked something inside it before walking back. He placed it on her table carefully. "Ethan, your bill, ma'am. And thank you for dining with us." There was something heavy in his tone, like he wasn't just saying goodbye for the evening, but something deeper. As he walked away, Alexandria noticed a small folded paper sticking out from inside the check. She frowned slightly, sliding it out. The handwriting on the front said only, "Please read when I'm gone." Her heart skipped. She looked up, but Ethan was already at the far end of the restaurant, helping another table. She held the note gently, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and concern. She had no idea that this simple piece of paper would change everything about her life and his. For a few long seconds, Alexandria just stared at the note in her hand. The restaurant was almost empty now, only a few customers finishing their meals, soft music still playing in the background. She turned the paper over again. The handwriting was uneven, the edges of the note slightly wrinkled, as if it had been folded and unfolded many times before. Curiosity and unease mixed in her chest. Finally, she decided to wait until she finished her tea, then she'd read it. But as she lifted the cup, her eyes drifted toward the young waiter again. He was helping an elderly couple across the room, smiling politely, yet his shoulders drooped with exhaustion. When the couple thanked him, he bowed slightly then walked away, rubbing his wrist, as if every move took effort. Alexandria noticed it all. There was something in his walk, quiet strength wrapped in sadness. A few minutes later, Ethan returned to her table to collect the dishes. He looked nervous again. Alexandria softly, "Ethan, right?" Ethan startled. "Yes, ma'am, Alexandria. You've been working all evening. You should sit down for a minute, you look tired." He smiled awkwardly. "Ethan, I appreciate that, ma'am, but I'm not allowed to sit while on duty." Alexandria gently, "Rules are rules, I suppose." She hesitated before adding, "You remind me of someone I used to know, someone who worked hard no matter what life threw at them." Ethan looked down, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan, sometimes, that's all we can do, ma'am. Just keep going." He turned to leave, but his tone carried a weight she couldn't ignore. For reasons she couldn't explain, Alexandria felt an ache in her heart. Here she was, a woman who had everything, and yet she could feel the quiet pain of a stranger across the room. When Ethan disappeared into the kitchen, she finally unfolded the note. Inside, only a few words were written, short, trembling, but filled with emotion. "You once changed someone's life without knowing it. Thank you for being the reason I never gave up." Her breath caught. The ink looked smudged, as though someone had written it quickly, maybe even in tears. Alexandria whispering, "What does this mean?" She looked up again, trying to catch Ethan's eyes, but he was gone. The paper trembled in her fingers as memories flashed through her mind, dozens of charity visits, thousands of faces she'd met. But one image began to surface, a small, frightened boy at a homeless shelter years ago. He couldn't be that boy, could he? Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was her assistant, texting, "Everything okay, ma'am? Need me to send the car?" She typed back quickly, "Not yet." Alexandria needed to understand this moment before leaving. She folded the note again and slipped it into her purse. A few moments later, Ethan came back, wiping his hands nervously on his apron. "Ethan, can I get you anything else, ma'am?" Alexandria, "No, thank you. But, may I ask you something?" He nodded cautiously. "Alexandria, why did you give me this note?" He froze. His eyes widened slightly. For a moment, he didn't say anything, just stared at her, as if deciding whether to tell the truth. Then he smiled weakly. "Ethan, I'm sorry, ma'am. I shouldn't have. It's nothing really." He turned away again, clearly shaken, but Alexandria wasn't convinced. Something in his tone, that mix of fear and honesty, told her there was more to the story. Before she could say another word, the restaurant manager called him from across the room. "Manager. Ethan, table 7 needs a refill." Ethan quickly, "Coming." He hurried off again, leaving Alexandria alone, but this time, she couldn't focus on anything else. She glanced once more at the note. Those words echoed in her mind. "You once changed someone else's life without knowing it." She leaned back in her chair, eyes thoughtful, heart heavy. Somehow, she knew this wasn't a coincidence. Life had a strange way of bringing people together, sometimes years later, when you least expected it. As she looked around, she saw Ethan again, pouring water for another guest, smiling as if nothing was wrong. And yet, the pain behind his eyes told another story, a story she was now determined to uncover. Alexandria to herself, "No act of kindness ever really disappears, does it?" She smiled faintly, remembering her own mother's words from years ago. "If you help one person, one day that kindness will find its way back to you." The thought gave her chills. The restaurant lights dimmed further. Ethan began stacking chairs, cleaning tables, preparing to close for the night. Alexandria stayed seated, lost in thought, her fingertips still brushing the edge of that folded note. The piano music faded, replaced by silence. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Alexandria, tomorrow, I'll find out who you really are." Have you ever had a stranger do something that stayed in your heart forever? Comment below and tell me which city or country you're watching this from. She didn't know it yet, but that quiet waiter held a story that would shake her heart and remind her why kindness always matters. The next evening, Alexandria returned to the same restaurant, not as a customer, but as a woman searching for answers. All night, Alexandria couldn't stop thinking about that note. Even when she tried to sleep, those words echoed in her mind. You once changed someone's life without knowing it. She turned them over again and again, wondering how she could have changed Ethan's life. She met thousands of people in her humanitarian work, but something about him, his eyes, his pain refused to leave her thoughts. By morning, she'd made up her mind. She was going back to that same restaurant. The next evening, the streets of New York City were buzzing with weekend energy, couples laughing, taxis honking, streetlights reflecting off rain-soaked pavement. But inside Le Jardin, the atmosphere was calmer. Alexandria entered quietly again, wearing the same understated elegance as before. When the hostess saw her, she smiled in surprise. "Hostess, welcome back, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. Table for one?" Alexandria nodding. "Yes, please. Same spot as last night, if possible." She sat near the window once again, same table, same view, same haunting curiosity. A few minutes later, Ethan appeared, his expression instantly changing when he saw her. He hesitated, as if unsure whether to smile or apologize. Ethan softly, "Good evening, ma'am. It's nice to see you again, Alexandria." "Hello, Ethan. I wanted to thank you for the excellent service last night." He nodded politely, still cautious. "Ethan, thank you, ma'am. Would you like your usual water and salmon?" Alexandria, "Yes, please. And maybe, if you have a moment, I'd like to talk to you." That last part made him pause. For a second, she saw panic flash across his face, but then he lowered his gaze and whispered, "Ethan, I'll be right back with your order, narrator." As she watched him walk away, Alexandria felt her heart ache. There was something he was hiding, something painful, and she wasn't leaving tonight without finding out what it was. When he returned with her dinner, she didn't start eating right away. Instead, she gently placed the folded note on the table between them. Alexandria, soft but firm. "I read this again and again, and I still don't understand." Ethan quietly, "You weren't supposed to." Alexandria, "Then why give it to me?" He looked down, struggling to speak. His fingers nervously fidgeted with the edge of his apron. "Ethan, because I needed to say thank you, even if you didn't remember me." She leaned forward slightly. "Alexandria, Ethan, have we met before?" He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "Ethan, yes, ma'am. A long time ago. I didn't expect you to remember. I was just a kid." Her breath caught as she listened. Ethan continuing, "About 10 years ago, my mom and I lived in a homeless shelter. You visited one night with your foundation. You brought food, blankets, and supplies. Everyone else came and went, but you sat down and talked to me." He smiled faintly, eyes distant with memory. "Ethan, you told me that no matter how poor I was, I could still choose to be kind. You said, life will test you, but never let it make you cruel." Alexandria's eyes softened. She remembered those words. Ethan, voice shaking, "That night, I wanted to give up, ma'am. I'd lost my dad. My mom was sick. We had nothing. But after you spoke to me, something changed. I promised myself I'd work hard, and one day, serve people the way you served us." Tears welled up in his eyes, but he kept talking. "Ethan, I started working at 15, took every job I could, and last night, when I saw you again right in front of me, it felt like the universe gave me a chance to say thank you." The restaurant fell silent around them. Even the soft piano music seemed to fade. For a long moment, Alexandria couldn't speak. Her throat tightened, her vision blurred slightly. Alexandria, softly, "You remembered all that, after so many years." "Ethan, how could I forget, ma'am? That kindness, it saved me." She reached across the table, her voice trembling but warm. "Alexandria, Ethan, you didn't just survive. You grew into someone strong. You turned pain into purpose, and that's worth more than any success I've ever had." He wiped his eyes, embarrassed, but smiling now. "Ethan, thank you, ma'am. You have no idea what that means." For a while, they just sat there, two people from completely different worlds, connected by a single moment of kindness that had changed both of them forever. Alexandria took a deep breath and smiled gently. "Alexandria, you know, Ethan, maybe that note didn't just change my night. Maybe it reminded me why I do what I do." He nodded gratefully. Before she left, Alexandria quietly placed a small envelope on the table. Inside, there wasn't just a generous tip, there was a letter. On the outside, she'd written only 4 words, "Keep choosing kindness, always." As she stood to leave, Ethan called out softly, "Ethan, Ma'am. Alexandria turning back. Yes, Ethan. Thank you. Again. She smiled. Alexandria. No, Ethan. Thank you. Have you ever met someone years later who changed your life in ways you never expected? Share your story below and tell me what city or country you're watching this from. That night, Alexandria thought the story had ended. But the next morning, one phone call would reveal a secret about Ethan that would break her heart all over again. That night, as Alexandria's car glided through the quiet New York streets, she couldn't stop smiling. The city lights shimmered outside the window, but her thoughts were far from the skyline. She kept replaying Ethan's words, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about hope, the way he said her kindness had saved him. For the first time in weeks, she felt peace. She leaned back in her seat, whispering softly to herself, Alexandria, sometimes helping one person really can change the world. But peace doesn't always last. The next morning, just as she was finishing her coffee, her phone rang. Assistant over phone. Ma'am, you asked us to look into that waiter you met, Ethan Miles? Alexandria smiling. Yes. What did you find? There was a long pause on the other end. Assistant. Well, we found something you might want to hear in person. Her smile faded. Alexandria. Tell me. Assistant. He's been working double shifts for months. Apparently, his mother's been in the hospital, late-stage illness. The restaurant staff said he's been saving every dollar for her treatment. Silence. Alexandria's heart sank. In her mind, she saw that same tired look in his eyes, the pain he tried to hide behind politeness. Alexandria quietly. Which hospital? That afternoon, Alexandria visited Stevie Ann's medical center, just a few miles from downtown. She wore a simple coat and no press entourage. This wasn't a visit for cameras. At the reception desk, she asked softly, Alexandria, could you tell me where to find Maria Miles? The nurse smiled faintly. Nurse, room 407, ma'am. She's a lovely woman. Her son visits her every evening. Alexandria thanked her and made her way down the hallway past the smell of disinfectant, the beeping monitors, the quiet footsteps of nurses. She stopped outside room 407 and peeked through the door window. Inside, she saw Ethan sitting by his mother's bedside, holding her hand. He was reading aloud from a small book, his voice calm and loving. His mother looked weak but peaceful, smiling faintly as she listened. It was a simple, tender scene, the kind that says everything about love, without a single word spoken. Alexandria didn't want to intrude, so she quietly waited in the hallway. A few minutes later, Ethan stepped out, startled to see her there. Ethan surprised. Ma'am. WH, what are you doing here? Alexandria gently. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to surprise you. I heard about your mother. I just wanted to see if she's all right. He looked down, embarrassed. Ethan, you didn't have to come. I didn't want to bother you with all this. Alexandria, you didn't bother me. You inspired me. He smiled faintly, but his eyes were tired. Ethan, she's been sick for a while. The doctors say the treatment might help, but it's expensive. I'm doing everything I can. Alexandria felt a sharp pang in her chest. Money, something she had in abundance, was the one thing standing between this boy and his mother's hope. She looked through the small window again, watching the frail woman rest. Alexandria softly, she reminds me of my mother. Ethan, really? Alexandria, yes. My mom worked 3 jobs when I was young. She used to tell me, when you make it big one day, promise me you'll never forget the ones who are struggling. Ethan smiled sadly. Ethan, your mother raised a good person. Alexandria, and yours raised a strong one. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hallway was silent except for the faint hum of machines from the room. Then Alexandria reached into her bag and handed him an envelope. Ethan, confused. What's this? Alexandria. Consider it a small favor. From someone who believes in you. He hesitated before opening it. Inside was a check enough to cover his mother's entire medical treatment. His eyes widened. Ethan. Ma'am, I can't accept this. Alexandria firmly. Yes, you can. And you will. This isn't charity, it's a thank you. You reminded me why kindness matters. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. He tried to speak but couldn't. His voice broke halfway through. Ethan whispering. You don't know what this means. You just saved my mom's life. Alexandria placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Alexandria. No, Ethan, you did. You worked, you fought, and you never gave up. I'm just finishing what you started. In that quiet hospital hallway, Two people from different worlds stood together, a billionaire and a waiter bound not by power or wealth, but by love, gratitude, and shared humanity. Before she left, Alexandria leaned closer and said softly, "Alexandria, take care of her, Ethan. And when she's well, tell her." A friend helped. He nodded, unable to speak through his tears. If you believe kindness should always come full circle, type in the comments and tell me what city or country you're watching this story from. As Alexandria walked out of the hospital, the evening sun bathed her face in gold. She felt lighter, not because she had given, but because she had healed. The next day, news of Alexandria's quiet act of kindness began to spread, but she had no idea that Ethan's story was about to touch millions around the world. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tall glass windows of Alexandria's office. The city buzzed as usual: meetings, deadlines, calls, but for her, everything felt different. Something inside her had shifted. She wasn't thinking about stock prices or politics. She was thinking about a young waiter, his sick mother, and a folded piece of paper that had reminded her of who she truly was. Hours passed quietly, until her assistant rushed in, phone in hand, excitement written all over her face. "Assistant, ma'am, have you seen this?" Alexandria smiling. "What is it?" "Assistant, a post. It's everywhere. You should see for yourself." She turned the screen around. On it was a photo taken secretly by a hospital nurse. It showed Alexandria standing in the hospital hallway, handing an envelope to a young man in a waiter's uniform. The caption read, "Kindness still exists. Billionaire helps waiter save his mother's life and asks for no credit." Within hours, the image had spread across social media. Thousands of comments flooded in from around the world. Faith in humanity restored. This is what real power looks like. Not all heroes wear suits. Alexandria stared at the photo in disbelief. She hadn't done it for fame. She didn't even know anyone had seen her. But now, the world knew. Her assistant scrolled through the comments. "Assistant, it's trending in over 30 countries, ma'am. People are calling it the note that changed everything." Alexandria smiled faintly. "Alexandria, the note?" "Yes, it really did." Across the city, Ethan sat beside his mother in her hospital room, reading the same article on his phone. His mother, pale but smiling, looked at the picture and whispered weakly, "Maria, Ethan's mom. That's the woman you told me about?" Ethan nodding proudly, "Yes, Mom, that's her. She's the reason you're getting better." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Maria, no, son. You're the reason. You never gave up." At that moment, Ethan realized something powerful: that kindness doesn't just save lives. It gives people the strength to keep living. Later that afternoon, a news crew waited outside the hospital, hoping for a comment. When Alexandria arrived quietly to visit Maria again, reporters surrounded her. Reporter 1, "Miss Ocasio-Cortez, can you confirm the viral story?" Reporter 2, "How much money did you donate? Are you starting a new charity?" Alexandria smiled calmly, holding up her hand. "Alexandria, gently. This isn't about money. It's about remembering that no matter how successful we become, we're never too important to care." Her words spread faster than the photo itself. Within hours, talk shows, podcasts, and newspapers picked it up. Children in schools wrote essays about kindness. Strangers began tipping waiters extra. Hospitals received anonymous donations marked simply, "For Ethan's mom." It had become more than a story, it was a movement. That evening, as Alexandria sat once more at the same restaurant, she noticed something new. On the wall near the entrance hung a framed note. It was the note, "You once changed someone's life without knowing it." Below it, in elegant script, the restaurant owner had written, "Dedicated to those who believe kindness can change everything." Ethan approached her table, smiling shyly. He looked healthier, brighter, lighter. "Ethan, the doctors say she's recovering, ma'am. They think she'll be home soon." Alexandria warmly, "That's wonderful news." He hesitated before adding, "Ethan, everyone keeps talking about what you did, but honestly, it's what you said that changed me." Alexandria smiling, "What did I say?" "Ethan, that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. I think I finally understand that now." She nodded, eyes shining with pride. "Alexandria, promise me something, Ethan. When life gives you the chance to lift someone up, take it, even if no one's watching." Ethan with emotion, "I promise, ma'am." As she left the restaurant that night, a small crowd gathered outside, not for autographs, but to thank her. One woman said softly, "Woman, your story made me call my mom again." A man whispered, "Man, you reminded me to forgive someone." Each word touched her deeply. she realized her message had done something that no speech or campaign ever could. It had healed hearts. That night, before going to bed, Alexandria wrote a message on her social media page. A young waiter once reminded me that kindness never goes unnoticed. No matter who you are, billionaire or broke, you have the power to change someone else's life. Be kind, even when no one's watching. Within hours, her post was shared across the world. It reached schools, hospitals, shelters, and homes from New York to Nairobi, Manila to Mumbai. And somewhere in a quiet hospital room, Maria Miles smiled as she watched the news, knowing her son's story had become a light for millions. If you believe kindness can start a chain reaction, type in the comments and tell me which city or country you are watching this story from. Let's see how far kindness travels. But just when everyone thought the story was over, a letter arrived at Alexandria's office, one that revealed something she never expected about Ethan's past. Weeks passed since the story broke. The internet had moved on to new headlines, new dramas, but for Alexandria, something still lingered. Every night, when she looked at the framed copy of Ethan's note on her desk, she felt a quiet sense of peace, mixed with curiosity. She had helped him, yes, but she still didn't know why his words that night had sounded so personal, almost as if he had known something about her that she didn't. Then, one morning, her secretary walked in holding a plain white envelope. Secretary, this came by hand, ma'am. No return address. Alexandria. Who sent it? Secretary. The man said only one thing, it's from someone she once saved. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single handwritten letter, neat, careful pen strokes. It began simply, Dear Miss Ocasio-Cortez, I'm writing this not as a waiter or someone who owes you, but as a person who's finally ready to tell the truth. Her heartbeat quickened as she continued reading. The night you came to the restaurant wasn't the first time we met. Years ago, I was a teenager, lost, homeless, and angry at the world. I used to sleep behind one of your community centers in Queens. One night, your staff found me there. Instead of calling the police, they gave me food. And you sat down beside me. Alexandria froze. Her eyes widened. You told me something I never forgot. Don't let the world convince you that you're small. You were born to rise. You probably said it 1,000 times to 1,000 people. But to me, it was the first time anyone had ever said I mattered. Her hands trembled slightly as she continued reading. That night, I promised myself that if I ever saw you again, I'd thank you properly. Years passed. I worked odd jobs, studied at night, and tried to take care of my mom. Then fate brought you back to me, not as a politician or billionaire, but as a customer sitting quietly in my section. I wrote that note because I recognized you and because I wanted you to know your words had saved someone's life. Alexandria leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed. She remembered that winter night, the boy under the broken streetlight, shivering in a worn hoodie. She had given him a sandwich, a blanket, and a few words of hope. That boy had been Ethan. The letter continued. My mom doesn't know about my past. I never told her I used to live on the streets. You gave me a second chance long before the world even knew my name. That's why when you came to my restaurant, I wanted to give you something money couldn't buy, a reminder of your own kindness. Tears filled her eyes as she reached the final lines. So thank you, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, not for saving my mother, but for saving the boy who almost gave up. Ethan Miles. She set the letter down slowly, her heart full. That evening, Alexandria drove across the city, not in her limousine, not with security, just herself, in a simple car, to the same small hospital. When she entered the room, Ethan stood up, surprised. Ethan, ma'am, I didn't think you'd read it this soon. Alexandria smiling softly. I couldn't stop once I started. They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that hides tears. Alexandria, you remembered that night? Ethan nodding. Every word. You told me I was born to rise. I didn't believe it then, but you made me believe it now. She stepped closer, her voice filled with warmth. Alexandria, you didn't just rise, Ethan. You helped the world see what real strength looks like. Outside, a small group of journalists waited, hoping for another story. But this moment wasn't for the cameras. It was for two people, one who had given hope years ago, and one who had returned it when she needed it most. As they sat together, Ethan handed her a small box. Ethan, this isn't much, but I wanted you to have it. Inside was a silver bracelet, engraved with simple words, kindness never forgets. Alexandria smiled, touched beyond words. Alexandria, I'll wear it every day. A week later, Alexandria founded a new global initiative, the Note Project. Its goal: to help young workers, students, and struggling families by funding small acts of kindness, meals, shelter, education, all in Ethan's mother's name. She didn't hold press conferences or give speeches this time. She just started doing the work. And slowly, messages began pouring in again. Because of the Note Project, I got my first job. I helped a family in need today. You reminded me that compassion still exists. The world had caught on, and it all began with a note from a waiter. On a quiet night months later, Alexandria sat by her window overlooking the city lights. She traced her fingers over the bracelet and whispered to herself, "Alexandria, softly, kindness never forgets." The camera panned up toward the stars, each light shining like a reminder that every small act of good leaves a mark somewhere on someone. If you believe one small act of kindness can change the world, comment and tell me what city or country you're watching from. Let's see how far kindness has traveled. But just when everything seemed perfect, a sudden tragedy struck, one that would test Alexandria's faith in kindness itself. Months passed, and the Note Project spread faster than anyone expected. From New York to Manila, from London to Cape Town, people began leaving small handwritten notes of kindness for strangers. Restaurants started kindness boards, schools began hope corners, and online hashtags like #KindnessNeverForgets went viral. Alexandria watched with quiet pride as Ethan's simple act inspired millions. Every message she read, every video shared, reminded her why she started all this, not for fame, but for humanity. But fate had one more test waiting. One rainy evening, Alexandria received a call. Her assistant's voice trembled through the phone. "Assistant, ma'am, there's been an accident." Alexandria, who? Assistant, Ethan. The words froze her. Her heart pounded in her chest. She rushed to the hospital, the same one where she had once met Ethan's mother. When she entered the room, her breath caught. Ethan lay there unconscious, a bandage around his head. His mother sat beside him, tears quietly falling. Ethan's mother sobbing. He was helping a car that broke down on the highway. Someone didn't see them in the rain. Alexandria held her hand tightly, her own tears falling freely. Hours passed like years. Machines beeped softly. The rain outside whispered against the windows. Finally, Ethan's eyes opened. Weak but still shining, he turned his head and smiled faintly. "Ethan," softly, "you came." Alexandria choking up. "Of course I came. You think I'd let my favorite waiter fight alone?" He chuckled weakly, his voice thin but calm. "Ethan, did they continue the project?" Alexandria, all over the world. Ethan, then, it was worth it. She squeezed his hand tighter. "Alexandria, don't you dare say goodbye. You still have work to do." "Ethan, work never ends, right?" He smiled faintly. "You taught me that." Days later, the doctors said Ethan would recover slowly but surely. The news spread quickly, and thousands sent him letters, flowers, and cards from around the world. Each note carried the same message: kindness never forgets. Ethan's room became a wall of hope, hundreds of colorful papers taped to every corner. Nurses said they had never seen anything like it. One morning, as Alexandria visited again, Ethan looked around and whispered, "Ethan, do you see this? You didn't just change my life. You changed the world." Alexandria smiling. "No, you did. You wrote the note that started it all." He smiled softly. "Ethan, then I guess kindness found its way back." Narrator calm, uplifting tone. A few months later, the Note Project launched its largest initiative yet, a global kindness day. Schools, businesses, and families participated together. Across cities, people left handwritten notes for strangers in cafes, buses, hospitals, and parks. And everywhere, one quote appeared again and again: kindness never forgets. That night, Alexandria returned to the same restaurant where it all began. She sat at the same corner table by the window. The waiter, this time a new one, smiled and said, "Waiter, ma'am, would you like to start with water?" She smiled faintly. "Alexandria, yes please, just water." As he walked away, she took out a folded piece of paper and placed it under the tip tray, a note written in her own elegant handwriting. It read, "To whoever finds this, no act of kindness is ever wasted. If you can help someone today, do it. You never know whose life you might change." She stood, smiled at the empty chair across from her, the seat where Ethan once stood, and whispered, "Alexandria, thank you, Ethan. You reminded me what real wealth is." As she walked out into the cool night air, The camera panned up toward the city skyline, lights twinkling like stars, each one representing a heart touched by kindness. Because at the end of it all, it wasn't about money, it wasn't about fame, it was about one truth that echoed around the world. Kindness never forgets. If you believe kindness can change the world, type respect in the comments. And tell me what city or country you're watching from. Let us see how far this message of love travels.